to talk about this rock here. Plymouth Rock, one of the most famous rocks in world history. I mean, you have the Black Rock at Mecca, you have the Blarney Stone, you have the Rosetta Stone. Other than that, there's not much competition that can match Plymouth Rock. Everyone knows the legend, the story of the Pilgrims landing on Plymouth Rock. But did it actually happen? First landing of the Pilgrims in New England was at Cape Cod. The first landing of the Pilgrims at Plymouth was on Clark's Island. And if you're steering a boat into shore, are you going to land on a huge boulder? It's possible. The harbor here is likely calmer than it was then. You're going to have more waves coming in. I don't think it's likely that they were going to risk smashing their boat into a large boulder. The first identification of this is in 1741, 120 years after the landing. There's a 95-year-old man, Elder Thomas Fonts. He is, though, the son of a pilgrim, and he supposedly, as he's 95 years old, expecting to die soon, he points it out to the townspeople, to posterity, saying, "This is the rock that the Pilgrims landed on. This is what my father told me." And supposedly he bid it a tearful last farewell. Make of that what you will. Whether that was the first landing spot based off of this testimony 121 years later by someone who wasn't there. That said, it was a huge boulder and it was a lot bigger then, so it is nearly certain that the Pilgrims did step on the boulder. Whether it's where they first landed, not as certain, to put it mildly. Since 1621, the boulders had quite a journey. In 1774, going into the American War for Independence, some patriots decided they were going to move this rock, because even then it was seen as a symbol of the Pilgrims and of American independence. So they jacked it up, attached 20 yoke of oxen to it. In the process, they broke the rock in half. The bottom they left where it was, and the top, they moved it to a different part of the town and set it up with the Liberty Pole, which was, of course, the symbol for the American independence movement. In 1834, that top half was moved again to the Plymouth Hall Museum, a very old museum, and was already in existence at that time. At this time in the 19th century, Plymouth is a busy place. The harborfront would look much different than it does today. There were wharves everywhere. There were a lot of trading going on, some manufacturing, and eventually groups interested in preserving the history here bought up the buildings around this particular area and tore them down in order to uncover Plymouth Rock. 1867, a monument was built over the bottom half of the rock, and then in 1880 that top half was moved down and it was reunited, and you can see the seam in it today. So even then, the rock was not left in peace. In 1921, the rock was temporarily moved out of place, the wharves were demolished, and the harborfront was transformed to be a park like it is today because the shipping industry from Plymouth had taken a big downturn. The area is landscaped, and the new canopy and new monument is built, and the rock was lowered to return it to water level. So the piece we can see here weighs 4 tons. There's about 6 more tons underground. And the rock used to be a lot bigger. It was possibly, twice or 3 times the size that we see it now, or that even exists under the water. And this is because a lot of pieces were broken off and taken to various parts of the country as monuments. You might go to some small museum off in whatever part of the United States, and they might have a section of Plymouth Rock that somebody had broken off and taken home. It's not important because they walked on it, even though they likely did. Its importance is because it is what the scripture calls an Ebenezer. It's a rock of remembrance. It's a symbol of the Pilgrims that people use to remember it. Today, Plymouth Rock is fading from our national memory. The values of the Puritan fathers don't align with modern American values. We're in the 400th anniversary, and it has passed with few commemorations. Not so in the past. Not so in 1920, not so in 1820. On the 200th anniversary, Daniel Webster gave a long and a famous oration. As was the custom in that time, they spoke for quite a long time. That printed address ran to 100 pages. And so since we don't have any great oration here in 2020, or 2021 as it is now, let's consider a little quote of what he said 200 years ago, and we'll wrap up here with that. So Daniel Webster said this: "We have come to this rock to record here our homage for the Pilgrim Fathers, our sympathy for their sufferings, our gratitude for their labors, our admiration of their virtues, our veneration for their piety, and our attachment to those principles of civil and religious liberty, which they encountered, the dangers of the ocean, the storms of heaven, the violence of savages, disease, exile, and famine, to enjoy and establish. And we would leave here also for the generations which are rising up rapidly to fill our places, some proof that we have endeavored to transmit the great inheritance unimpaired, that in our estimate of public principles and private virtue, in our veneration of religion and piety, in our devotion to civil and religious liberty, in our regard for whatever advantages human knowledge or improves human happiness, we are not altogether unworthy of our origin. We feel that we are on the spot where the first scene of our history was laid, where the hearths and altars of New England were first placed, where Christianity and civilization and letters made their first lodgment in a vast country covered with a wilderness and peopled by roving barbarians. So a lot of what he says there is controversial today, and some of it perhaps should be. But it is important to remember that this is where a lot of America started, and we should take what good we can find from the Pilgrims. And I think we can find a lot of good in their story.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also visit www.discerninghistory.com for more videos and other resources.